There's a kind of silence that comes after pain, not the kind that waits to heal, but the kind that accepts the damage as permanent. You stop explaining yourself. You stop asking, why me? And at some point, you stop feeling anything at all. That's the moment people think they've broken you. What they don't see is what's quietly building inside. Not hope, not healing. Something colder, stronger. Something that no longer fears death, because death already happened inside. This is for the ones who've already lost everything and are still standing. Not to inspire pity, but to remind the world, you don't kill a man by hurting him. You kill him by making him feel nothing. Watch this video till the end, and if this hits home, subscribe and like. You're not alone in this. There's a moment when the pain just stops. Not because it's over, but because something inside you shuts down. You don't cry anymore. You don't scream. You don't even flinch. People around you think that's strength. They say you're holding it together, like you've conquered the storm. But the truth is darker. The truth is, you've gone quiet because the part of you that used to care just doesn't respond anymore, and it's terrifying. You wake up, but it feels like watching your own life from the outside. You smile when you have to. You nod when someone talks. But inside, it's a flat line. You don't feel angry. You don't feel hopeful. You just feel gone. This isn't healing. This is what happens before healing even becomes possible. This is death. It's the internal kind, the quiet kind, the kind no one notices but you. And I know what you're thinking, that maybe this is it. Maybe you've lost whatever made you you. Maybe this is just who you are now. Numb, disconnected, unreachable. Let me tell you something only the broken ever understand. That emptiness, that void where everything used to be. It's not the end, it's the clearing. It's the space left behind after the version of you that couldn't take it anymore finally collapsed. And yeah, it hurts in a way that doesn't bleed, but that hollow space is necessary. Because only in that silence can something new begin. No one talks about this part. Everyone celebrates the comeback, the glow, the transformation, but before all of that, there's the death of illusions, the death of blind hope, the death of needing to be loved, understood, rescued. And when that part of you dies, something else quietly begins to rise. Not overnight, not loud, not clean, but real. At first, it's just a flicker, a refusal to keep begging, a choice to breathe, not because life is beautiful, but because you're still here. A whisper inside that says, no more begging, no more pleasing, no more explaining. This is the beginning of power, not the fake kind people post online, but the kind born from knowing pain intimately. It's surviving it anyway. You're not who you were before the fall. You never will be. And that's the point. You're becoming someone who doesn't chase validation, who doesn't beg for peace, who doesn't crumble every time the world turns cold. You're learning to exist after the collapse. And maybe that version of you isn't soft anymore. Maybe they're sharper, colder, less trusting, but more awake, because you've walked through the fire. And now, there's nothing left to burn. This isn't your end. It's the brutal, necessary death of who you had to be. So the person you were meant to become can finally rise. There was a time you loved without hesitation. You didn't hold back, didn't calculate. You just gave fully, recklessly, like your heart could never be used against you. And for a while, that felt like strength, to care so deeply, to show up when no one else did, to love even when it wasn't returned. The same way, but then it happened. Not all at once, piece by piece. A slow erosion, the lies, the silence, the disappearing acts, the cold apologies that always came too late. You kept forgiving, kept waiting, believing that maybe they'd finally see the version of you were bleeding to show them. They didn't. And when it finally broke, it wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was you staring at yourself and realizing this isn't love anymore. This is survival. You see, love changes you, not always into something soft, sometimes into something hard, unmoving, untouchable. Because after you've been shattered by the very people you tried to save, something in you stops offering that same kind of love so freely. You stop showing all your cards. You stop opening the door without checking who's knocking. You stop explaining your pain to people who only want access, not understanding the man you've become now. He doesn't beg to be loved. He doesn't romanticize the chase. He protects. Not just himself, but the version of himself that once loved without defense, because you know now that kind of love isn't safe in the wrong hands. It gets twisted, gets drained, it gets thrown back at you like you were stupid for feeling so much. So now, you wear your scars differently, not as wounds, but as armor. You're not colder because you're heartless. You're colder because you finally learned to stop handing the sharpest parts of your soul to people who only came to cut. And that shift, it's not bitterness, it's maturity, it's control. It's knowing the difference between someone who wants your heart and someone who knows how to hold it. You didn't lose your ability to love. You just stopped leaking it all over people who never earned it. And if you've been made to feel, it's like you're too guarded now, good. Because real love won't ask you to bleed to prove you feel. Real love will know that what you've built around yourself isn't a wall, it's a gate. And the ones who belong, they'll know how to enter without destroying what's inside. You still love, just differently. You still give. But now from a place that knows the value of what's being given, because the man who was once broken isn't weak. He's just finally learned what he's worth. They told you to be calm, to breathe, to be the bigger person. They said things like let it go as if the fire inside you was a flaw. As if your anger was something to be ashamed of. As if the only path to peace was silence. But they never saw what you held back. They never felt the nights where you clenched your fists under the covers, biting your tongue so hard it bled. Didn't see you swallowing words that deserved to be screamed. They weren't there when your boundaries were shattered, while you were expected to smile through the wreckage. You've been taught that rage is dangerous, that it makes you weak, unstable, wrong. But here's the truth. Your rage is real. It came from something. It didn't grow out of nowhere. It was born when your voice was ignored, when your worth was questioned, when your kindness was mistaken for permission. That fire you carry isn't the problem. It's the proof that something inside you still refuses to be broken. Rage is what kept you alive when numbness was pulling you under. Gave you teeth when the world tried to strip you bare. Kate gave you the strength to say enough when no one else would defend you. You don't have to run from it anymore. This rage, your rage, is not here to destroy you. It's here to wake you up. Because anger, when you finally stop burying it, becomes direction. It becomes clarity. It becomes movement. You're not lashing out. You're rising up. You're not out of control. You're finally claiming it. And no, not everyone will understand it. Some people will call it bitterness. Others will call it dangerous. But that's because they're used to the version of you who stayed quiet. The version of you who took the hits and smiled anyway. But that version of you is gone. Is someone who finally knows their own limit. So don't let anyone convince you that your anger makes you broken. It means you're aware. It means your soul is screaming for better. It means you've seen what happens when you stay silent too. Long, and you're done doing that now. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about proving anything to anyone else. This is about you finally listening to yourself. All those buried emotions. They were never meant to disappear. They were meant to guide you through the chaos, through the grief, through the betrayal, into something solid. And now here you are, still burning. But for something. Because when the smoke clears, what's left isn't destruction. It's the beginning of someone who finally stopped apologizing for feeling everything. started living like it mattered. There's a silence that feels like defeat, like giving up, like breaking down. And then there's the other kind where you stop explaining yourself, the kind where the noise around you fades, not because you lost the fight, because you realized you don't need to prove a damn thing anymore. That's when the shift begins. You used to speak just to be heard, to justify your pain, your choices, your existence. You argued with people who didn't care. You defended yourself against lies. You kept shouting into a world that had already decided who they thought you were, and every word chipped away at you. Not because they didn't believe you, but because deep down, you knew they never wanted to understand you in the first place. There comes a point where you get tired. Not physically, mentally, tired of begging for clarity in places built on confusion. Tired of making noise in rooms that feed on chaos. Tired of speaking truth to people who only listen when it benefits them. And in that exhaustion, you fall into silence. But this time, it's different. It's not silence out of fear. It's not silence from defeat. It's silence born from awareness. Awareness that you've been wasting energy explaining your worth to people who never had the range to see it. You don't need to react anymore. You don't need to respond. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. Because when you become quiet, not because you're scared, but because you see you stop bleeding for people who would have let you die. And that's the moment they get uncomfortable. Not when you're screaming, not when you're defending, when you go quiet. Because silence is control. It's the decision to keep your peace instead of spending it. It's what happens when your emotions no longer own you. When your triggers stop dictating your reactions, when your healing doesn't need to be visible to be real, you become dangerous in your silence. It's not because you're planning revenge, but because you've realized how powerful you are when you don't need to be seen to know your value. They expect the old you, the loud one, the reactive one, the one who couldn't stand being misunderstood. But that version of you is gone. Now, you watch more than you speak. You listen more than you explain. You move with a presence that doesn't ask for attention. It commands it. Because real power doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, doesn't chase, it just is. And when they finally realize you've gone quiet, that's when they start to understand what they lost because you didn't disappear. You just evolved into someone who no longer needs noise to prove they exist. You've wasted too much time trying to be understood, trying to explain the way you think, why you pulled away, why you went silent, why you stopped showing up for people who never showed up for you, and they still didn't get it. You gave them every detail, every scar, every reason, every crack in your voice, hoping they'd finally see where your silence came from. But they weren't listening to understand. They were listening to judge you. To twist your truth into something small and convenient, that's the part that burns. Not just being hurt, but having to defend your pain afterward. As if healing isn't already heavy enough, you're forced to carry the weight of justifying why you're not okay. But here's what you've started to realize. You don't owe anyone that anymore. You don't owe them your backstory. You don't owe them access to the parts of you they helped break. You don't owe them an explanation for who you are becoming, or why you had to walk through hell to get there. Let them misunderstand you. Let them create their version of your story. The one where you're cold, distant, selfish. Let them talk. Because every minute you spend trying to change their minds is a minute stolen from your own rebuild. And right now, if you're in rebuild mode, you're not here to be seen. You're here to build. Quietly, deliberately, unapologetically, you see. There's a point where you stop needing to prove yourself. You stop needing their validation, their approval, their applause. You stop needing them to get it. Because while they gossip, while they speculate, while they watch, you're moving. You're putting the pieces back together, not for them, but for you. No announcement, no explanation, just action. And that shift when you go from explaining to executing, that's when everything changes. Because power doesn't come from being understood. It comes from doing the work no one sees. It comes from pouring every ounce of your energy into the version of you that no one believed would make it. They'll never know what it cost you. They'll never understand the nights, the losses, the wait. and they don't need to. Because what you're building isn't for validation. It's for survival, for clarity, for peace. You're not angry anymore. You're not trying to prove them wrong. You're just done wasting breath on people who never deserved your voice to begin with. So let them wonder. Let them judge. Let them talk. You've got bigger things to build. You've spent so much time trying to be enough for everyone else that you forgot what it felt like to look in the mirror and actually recognize the person staring back. You shape-shifted, kept the peace, held back. The truth played small when your soul wanted to scream. And one by one, they still left, or worse. They stayed, but only for the version of you that wasn't even real. And now, it's quiet. The room is empty. The noise is gone. The masks are off. And all that's left is you. No distractions. No applause. Just a reflection that won't blink, won't flatter, sure as hell won't lie to you. That's the part no one tells you when you lose people. You don't just grieve them. You meet yourself, the one you buried under approval, the one who swallowed pain just to keep things from falling apart. It's the one who never had a chance to speak because the world was too loud, too cruel, too damn selfish to care. But now you've run out of places to hide. You stare into that mirror and it stares right back. It's not with judgment, but with brutal, unfiltered truth. You see the anger you suppressed, the sadness you denied, the strength you forgot you had, and maybe for the first time in your life, you really see yourself, not who you were told to be, not the image you tried to sell, but you. Raw, messy, unfinished, real. That's where everything changes. Because once you face yourself, truly face yourself, you stop begging the world to accept you. You stop explaining your pain like it's a crime to be human. You stop shrinking just to fit into someone else's comfort. You realize the mirror doesn't lie, but it also doesn't betray. It shows you your scars and your fire, your wounds and your will to fight. It reflects every part you thought made you unlovable and reveals the truth. You were never broken, only buried. So let them misunderstand you. Let them create their stories while they gossip, while they guess. You stand in front of that mirror and finally reclaim your name. Because when it's just you and your reflection, there's no one left to lie to, no more reason to keep running. You faced the only person who matters. You didn't look away. That's where power begins. There was a time you cared so much it burned. You gave, and you gave, and you gave, until there was nothing left in you but smoke and silence. And they still called you cold, still said you changed. But they didn't see the part of you that died while waiting to be heard. They didn't notice the way your voice softened when you started questioning your own worth. They only noticed when you stopped chasing, stopped answering, stopped showing up, with your hands open and your heart exposed. And now they say you're detached. As if detachment means you feel nothing. As if letting go is the same as giving up. But you know better. You didn't shut down. Just stopped handing your soul to people who treated it like it was disposable. You learned that not every call deserves an answer, and every silence needs to be filled. You stopped begging for crumbs and realized you were starving. See, detachment is not emptiness. It's a shift. A quiet, brutal shift where you stop placing your peace in other people's hands. You stopped replaying old conversations in your head trying to decode what went wrong. You stopped explaining yourself to people who were never really listening. You stopped feeling guilty for resting, for saying no, for not being everything to everyone. You didn't grow cold. You just got tired of burning for people who wouldn't even hold a match for you. They called you distant, but you were finally coming home to yourself. You were protecting your mind from the noise, your heart from the weight, your future from the drain. Because what they never understood is that there's a cost to constantly being available. There's a cost to caring past the point of exhaustion. And one day, something inside you just breaks, not in weakness, but in clarity. You realize you are the only one keeping yourself stuck. So no, you're not heartless. You still feel everything. You still love. You still care. Not now. You choose. You choose where your energy goes. You choose who gets access. You choose when to engage and when to walk away. And that choice, that quiet, grounded, fearless choice, that's not emptiness. That's power. That's peace. Because when you stop begging to be seen, you finally see yourself. And in that moment, in that breath, you understand. It was never about becoming less emotional. It was about becoming less available to things that destroy you. You didn't become numb. You just remembered your worth. No one claps when you wake up at 4 a.m. No one sees the nights you lie on the floor, staring at the ceiling, wondering if any of this is even worth it. No one hears the way your chest tightens every time you try to breathe through the chaos inside your own head. There is no crowd for this version of you. No spotlight, no noise. But that's where it begins, not in the roar of approval, but in the dead silence of your private war. See, people think comebacks are loud. They imagine fire, revenge, a grand entrance, someone standing tall and yelling, "I'm back." But that's not real life. That's a movie. Real comebacks are quiet. They happen when no one's looking. They happen when you're exhausted, but you show up anyway. Your hands are shaking, but you still pick up the pieces. When you stop waiting for someone to rescue you and decide to rebuild something they can't even see, you don't need to prove them wrong anymore. You've done the screaming, you've done the bleeding, you've tried to make them understand, and none of it mattered, because the truth is, they were never your enemy. You were the one believing their lies. You were the one making yourself small just to be accepted. You were the one who handed them the blueprint for how to break you. But now every step you take is deliberate, not loud, not desperate, just real. You're not here to be seen anymore. You're here to become something no one recognizes, something they can't define, control, or dismiss. Because when you rise in silence, you rise without asking permission, and maybe you still hurt, maybe you're still scared. It's fine, because strength isn't the absence of pain, it's what you build while carrying it. And right now, every quiet move you make is shaping something they won't understand until it's too late. So let them sleep on you. Let them forget you. Let them think you're done. Because the real comeback isn't loud. It's not explosive. It's not for show. It's that moment months from now, when you walk into a room and no one recognizes you. When they look into your eyes and realize they never broke you. They just built a storm. They won't survive. They never saw you. Not really. You were there every single day, breathing, bleeding, breaking, ... Quietly, you showed up. You smiled. When it hurt, you clapped when others won. You swallowed your pain because no one ever really asked, "Are you okay?" and meant it. You waited your turn. You lowered your voice. You made yourself smaller just to make room for people who wouldn't even look your way. And still, they looked through you. Not at you, not for you, like you were part of the background. Just another extra in someone else's spotlight. You kept hoping that if you worked harder, loved louder, stayed longer, maybe they'd notice. Maybe they'd say, "You matter. You've always mattered." But they didn't, and maybe now you know they never will. Not until it's too late. That's the part that burns, doesn't it? It's not that you were overlooked. It's that you were used for your silence, your loyalty, your ability to carry weight without breaking. They called you quiet. But what they really meant was convenient. You were easy to forget, till you weren't. Because one day you stopped explaining. You stopped chasing. You stopped hoping they'd finally recognize your value. You didn't announce it. You didn't make a scene. You just started walking. Away from conversations that drained you, from people who remembered you only when they needed something. And that's when the shift happened. That's when the silence started getting louder, because your presence wasn't loud, but your absence. It echoed. Suddenly, the same people who said, "You're too sensitive," began saying, "You've changed." No, you didn't change. You just stopped allowing yourself to be ignored. Now they scroll past your name on headlines, on titles, on things they never imagined you'd touch. And they blink. They whisper. They ask, "Wasn't that the one who..." Yes, the one they didn't notice, till you became undeniable. That's how it always is. They don't see the roots, so they only stare at the tree once it towers above them. They don't hear the grinding, the sleepless nights, the ache. They only hear the noise once. You finally made it. But here's the truth. No one tells you. You were never invisible. You were evolving, quietly, relentlessly, without their applause. And now, you're no longer trying to be seen, because you are the thing they can't unsee. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them wish they'd paid attention sooner. But you, keep moving. Right. They'll only see you once it's too late. And by then, you won't need them to. You keep waiting for something to fix you, a moment. A sign. Someone to pull you out of this darkness and say it's okay now. You're safe. But what if that moment never comes? What if no one's coming? What if you were never supposed to be saved? That pain you carry, the anger, the fear, the chaos, it was never a mistake. It wasn't some glitch in your story waiting to be erased. It was your story, the ashes you're sitting in. They're not ruins, they're fuel. You didn't get here by accident. The people who left, hands that didn't reach back, the breaks that never came, it was all by design. The world never gave you peace because it was never meant to tame you. It was meant to wake something up inside you. You spent your whole life trying to soften yourself, trying to fit in, trying to make sense in a world that doesn't make room for people like you. But here's the truth. No one told you. You don't need peace to find your purpose. You need war. You need resistance. You need to burn through what was never built. For you, because what's coming from you isn't meant to be gentle. It's meant to shake the ground. They tried to convince you that healing meant becoming quiet, that growth meant becoming smaller, that forgiveness meant forgetting what broke you. But maybe healing isn't about fixing what they damaged. Maybe it's about becoming so powerful that even your wounds start to look like armor. You weren't meant to be saved. You were meant to unleash. It's the anger that kept you awake at night. That was your edge. It's the loneliness that almost crushed you. That was your silence sharpening. The pain you begged to escape from was pressure turning you into something they can't define anymore. You're not the broken version of yourself crawling towards some imaginary light. You are the light, the fire, the storm they tried to put out before it knew what it could do. So stop waiting to be rescued. You're not a victim. You're not some shattered soul begging for mercy. You're a force that was never meant to be caged. And now they don't know what to do with you because you finally stopped apologizing for existing. You're not here to be understood. You're not here to make sense to those who only know how to follow. You're here to rewrite the rules, to tear down the walls that kept you quiet, to become so loud with your presence that silence itself shatters. This world wasn't ready for you, and it never will be. Good. Because now, you don't need its permission.